kiss for you.
Hey, so in order to kind of get videos out at a quicker pace, like I'm doing here, I'm going to be starting a new series called Mini Bites. Effectively, it's going to be similar to the Mastercast, which is getting a little bit of a restructuring for the next one, but basically it's going to be topics that I think are important that I want to talk about, or that are interesting to me, however, that don't really fill up a full like Mastercast spot, or that I want to get out quicker than Mastercast can be, because that requires people, and people are schedules and time and all that stuff. Should be recording. Here is the iMac, as you can see, hopefully by the screen. Different colors, which is pretty neat. And as you can see, the first thing that's pretty noticeable compared to the other iMac screens is the fact that it's super thin. And that's because it's using the new M1 chip, and the M1 chip is like an ARM chip, which I'll talk about more in a little bit. But basically, it's a new chip that integrates everything into a tiny little package and is able to make everything a lot thinner than it typically would be. So you have this really basically rail thin computer here, right? It's not just like a monitor, right? In fact, my monitor is actually bigger thickness than this is, and it has a little stand or whatever. It comes here. So it's basically saying, yeah, it has the new M1 chip and it stands out in any space, and the price is quite interesting. It's only $1,300 starting price. So they obviously talk about the colors, which is pretty neat. Different colors, different arrangements, and as you can see, a lot has actually changed on top of just the like normal color situation. So as you can see, it's quite thin, right? And it has an interesting stand here that I think is pretty good, maybe, depending on how you see it. But what I really want to talk about is the front. So this is a really incredible device. Let me read the specs real quick. So it's an all-in-one, which means it's going to have processor, display, stand, everything like in one system right here, versus a computer or laptop, right? Obviously it has the M1 chip, so ARM chip, new performance, battery life, all that stuff is supposed to be really great. Battery life, never mind. But yeah, definitely the performance is going to be good. The just general capabilities and speed of the thing being heavily integrated is also really good for like certain apps. Colors, obviously you saw different colors: yellow, orange, pink, even though that's red, purple, blue, and then just silver. I'd probably say the blue is what I would pick, maybe this cool green. But yeah, so there's that. It's also super thin, as I've said, because of the new M1 stuff. Does have a couple limitations, but the best thing is the screen. It's 24-inch screen, is 4.5K Retina display. Fantastic for like viewing movies and that kind of stuff with a P3 color gamut as well. They've also advertised a couple of things like the best camera, microphone, and speaker array, so in that bottom chin. Now a couple of things on the back here as we're going through. It talks about the stand, which I guess is basically just a metal rail, but a couple of the limitations of the M1 from like the back perspective. Like, yeah, the screen's great, it has all those good features, but one of the limiting factors is the output, right? It's a integrated system ARM chip, and so it can't really have external like motherboards and stuff to give it I/O. It has to use the built-in I/O of the M1. Built-in I/O of the M1 is only currently 2 Thunderbolt ports with 2 more added on, and a power connector here, and that's basically it. There's no Ethernet, no SD card reader, no nothing. It's just these 4 ports, which is kind of disappointing because that's the same thing you can get on like a MacBook Pro. So that's going to be interesting to see if they can eventually, with like the M2 and stuff, be able to like fix that in a way. But yeah, one of the limitations is they have the 4 ports. Another limitation that we'll talk about in a moment is the fact that they effectively limit the amount of capability. They limit the amount of capability of this machine because of only having those 4 ports, and because it doesn't have a GPU, and like the other ones did have a GPU. So like if you look at the M1, actually we'll just go to the specs here. 24-inch screen, 4.5K diagonal screen, M1 chip, which is an 8-core GPU CPU like combination, 16 gigabytes of unified memory, which means it's not upgradable, and it really has been, but it's always been like an option if you really want to do like dig it out and stuff. Yeah, so as I said, camera has been updated to 1080p face camera with the M1 electronic image stabilization stuff, which is pretty cool, and it's supposed to like adjust dynamic colors and stuff, so that's really neat and that's good. Overall, that's an improvement, as well as the mics and speakers. MagSafe power, as we saw before, basically if you trip over the cord, even though it's going to be behind you, it will like detach. So that's good. Large performance I have here, but that's not super indicative because it depends really on your apps. Yeah, and then another thing they added with this, on top of the color, the screen, the camera, the like new design, is the MagSafe keyboard with a Touch ID thing. So it's $1,300, pretty good. If you want a 256 gig SSD, it's $1,500. If you want a 512 gig, which is probably what I would do, it's $1,700. It's expensive. It definitely is not cheap. Like everything Apple, it's not super cheap. However, it's much cheaper than I thought it would be, because I think they're banking on the fact that a lot of people are not going to really use this as a like super powerhouse device, right? This is the normal iMac 24 inches, not the like spec'd up one. So yeah, it has that, different colors, chip, same for both of the models, the storage, memory can be upgraded. The screen as well, 500 nit brightness, P3 color gamut, true tone, as I said before, 4.5K Retina display, which is really good. Those are on their own are about $300, so that brings the total down to the actual machine itself. If you just get, let's say, this model right here, to be about like $1,100, so that's pretty cool. Talks about display, better camera, it has like video support. Another thing that's like a limit is that you can only have one external display, and I'm not sure if it does high refresh. I'm not quite sure about that, but you can only have one external display, so if you have like multiple monitors, you can't set this up to connect to more than one monitor support, even though it has full native resolution for the built-in colors and stuff through one monitor up to 6K resolution, so that's the Pro Display XDR capability, but it doesn't have it for multiple. So if you want to connect multiple monitors to this, you can't, and also the limit for the output is important. Talk about the audio, the wide stereo sound, and the speaker, and it supports for Hey Siri and the quality mics and stuff, which is pretty cool. And then it talks about connections, as we said before. It has a display port. Oh, no, it just talks about what it can support, yeah. So Thunderbolt 4, USB 4 is display port, so connecting like graphics cards, external displays and stuff. Thunderbolt 3, power, charging, that kind of stuff. USB 4, 3.1 Gen 2, HDMI, video output. Also the headphone jack, configurable gigabit Ethernet on one of them, and then 2 more ports on this higher end model. As was the Ethernet thing is kind of like attached to the charging brick. So that's kind of interesting. It's like behind you. I talked about the Magic Keyboard, Wi-Fi 6, all that stuff, which is pretty cool. And here's everything in the box. You have the iMac, the Magic Keyboard, the Magic Mouse, the 143 watt power adapter is quite. That's actually interesting because that means that the power source isn't built into the thing, but I'm not sure how much power that is in comparison to like a normal like computer. Like I'm curious to see what like the normal power thing for a computer would be, and it's not 550 watts or like 600 watts or whatever the power supply is. I just wonder what the like typical power is. So yeah, it comes with cable, and then this is just for this one, right? So here it is: operating system, Mac OS, built-in apps. You have the App Store, all that stuff. Basically, it just talks about, and then there's a whole garbage blurb about that. What I really I'm curious about is if I go to the Mac. If I go to this new one here, oh, they split them up. Interesting. So it's like the 24 inch and the 27 inch. So if I go to the 27 inch, it's like the same old design that we've seen before, big, chunky, whatever. Not that great, trying to play like Ocean Horn or something. So if I go to buy here, just to compare prices real quick, I think that's interesting, okay. So they have the 21.5 inch version, which seems quite small, and then the 27 inch version, and then the 24 is like a new model, separate, which is interesting. So let's go this one. It has, so a couple of differences. This is the same. It has a Radeon Pro 5300, 4 gigs of memory and stuff. So this is like a worse value, which is interesting because they're still selling it. And I think they're going to do the same thing that they did with the MacBook Air, where they like sold the old MacBook Air for like ever. Look, yeah, if I go to the MacBook Air got redesigned, right? Yeah. MacBook Air got redesigned, but I guarantee they're still selling the old one. If I go to buy, I wonder if I can, not the old one, but like the older models of it, because they're not completely sold. Oh, interesting. They only have 2 models now, and they've completely replaced it, so that's cool. They're not selling the old MacBook Air. I'd probably choose this one if I was going. So what's interesting is that like I'm not quite sure what the difference is, because like the same chip, same memory, same storage, Magic Keyboard, this stuff, and the only difference is that the MacBook Pro version has a fan in it, so it can like have a little bit better performance. But that's not like super indicative of like the actual difference. Like what's the like. They're very similar, right? This is almost $50 more. Like, let's open a new tab real quick and compare them. I'm pretty sure they're, like, exactly the same. Except one's $50 more. So if I go to MacBook Air, buy, and I look at the once it loads, this version, right? It's the Apple chip, 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, Apple chip, 8 gigs of RAM, 256. Interesting. So it's less storage and it's more expensive. That's odd. Let's look at them closer up. So we have this is the Air, right? Oh, yes, this is the Air. Oh, no, they're the same. No, they're not. Okay. So, yeah, we have the M1 chip, 8 gigs, 250, 512, 13-inch Retina display with True Tone. Is there anything difference here? No, they're the same. Magic Keyboard, Touch Bar. Touch ID and Touch Bar, Touch ID. So this doesn't have the Touch Bar. Force trackpad, 2 thermal. So you're basically paying for less storage and a touch bar and a fan. So to have a fan and to have the touch bar, but like you also lose half your storage capacity, which doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, and I guess, yeah, I can like, oh, and then we have these older models here. But like, okay, now we up the storage and now it's 1500. So now it's even more interesting because we literally have the exact same thing as we have here, even with the 8 gigs of RAM, right? But we have a touch bar and a fan. But like now it's even worse because now it's like $250 more. The pricing seems a little odd here. We have the only difference between this is the storage, and the storage upgrade on this one costs $200, and yet the storage upgrade on this one costs $250. Like, right? Like, what? The pricing scheme here doesn't make a bunch of sense, honestly. But yeah, that's basically what the like M1 stuff is, and the M1 Mac thing. I'm actually curious if this is like the Pro version, and if we go to like whatever the pricing scheme on this one is, can I like go to a configure page, or is it just gonna like load something? Because like that's weird that like you less storage on the MacBook Pro base model is more expensive than the top model of this, and it has less storage but has a touch bar and fan. But then you upgrade the storage and then it doesn't even make more sense at all, because then it's only the fan and the thing, but it's like a lot more expensive. And the fan does mean like you get a like more performance, but like it's not super, like it's not like an absurd amount. And we have a new page here, which is interesting. We basically have let's go this one, and these are like relatively similar because they have the same thing, right? So let's just go like this Air with this 256, 8 gigs, better screen. Yeah, so let's just compare it here. Better screen, 2 Thunderbolt versus 2 Thunderbolt here. Gigabit Ethernet, no Ethernet, Magic Keyboard, yeah. So, I mean, this kind of makes sense. But then we go to, like, the MacBook Pro 13-inch here, and we see if we're going to, like, compare them, I guess, once it loads. But it's really weird that, like, they're right $1,500, right? So we have less storage, better screen, right? Less storage, better screen. That's it. And Gigabit Ethernet. Less storage, better screen, Gigabit Ethernet. Same price, which I guess, like, this makes more sense, right? If you don't need something portable, I guess. But, like, then the MacBook Air just doesn't make a ton of sense at the moment. Or, like, the base model MacBook Pro doesn't make a ton of sense. Because you're going to go top of the line MacBook Air, or you're just going to go this one, right? Because no one's like, oh, I only need this. Which is funny enough, because that's what I picked. But at the time, this, with the Intel stuff, was, like, $1,800. In fact, they probably still have it. Yeah, here it is. Except they doubled all the stuff with it, which I'm super annoyed about. They're like, yeah, useless. 16 gigs of RAM, that hurts. 512 gigs of storage, that really hurts. And it's, of course, the same price. So they basically cucked me over, which is annoying. But, yeah. Ultimately, it's just interesting to compare prices for this stuff, I guess. And it's, oh, what to consider, blah, 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 blah. They're doing a lot more advertising at this point, which is interesting. I know it's like a pre-order thing, but, like, the advertising here is a lot. They're proud of it, and you know this screenshot looks pretty good as well with the new 16-inch here. Kind of look matches. So that's basically all I want to talk about in this episode is the well, comparing the prices honestly, and then just saying this is an interesting step for Apple because they currently also have the iPad that's doing that. The new iPad Pro is supercharged, and by that I mean it like has the M1, which was like expected. But then it has this XDR Liquid Extreme display. It has 5G. It has the XDR M1. And then it has a mini LED display. And my computer sounds like it's going to explode. So if you hear a fan noise, that's the computer for some reason. Yeah. But like this is incredible. Let's go, how much is this, right? And it's $1,000? Yeah, that makes sense. We have 2 sizes. We got 11-inch or 12.9-inch. Let's go 11-inch. Space gray, 128. gigs to find Wi-Fi. $800. That's a lot of money. So yeah, those are basically what, $66 a month. You're an idiot if yeah, so this is kind of interesting. I'm not sure where they're going to go from that. It would be cool if they did that in the iPhone. They're not going to, though. It would be really interesting if they did that in the watch. Even though the watch has their own thing, I bet they could probably figure out a way to put this in the watch, considering they've been putting it in literally everything else since then. I'd be curious to see this be put into the watch, or maybe even some of their, like, older stuff, like the iPad mini, right? Like, what's the iPad mini currently? Just has, like, the stuff from before. Yeah. And then 27-inch iMac. They already did the Mac Mini. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that's basically, again, what I want to talk about. Next topic is going to be the Amazon Tile partnership that I'll be talking about in the next video. Hopefully you found this kind of interesting. At least if you don't worry. There'll be another episode in about a couple of days. So, yeah. With that, goodbye.